So I want to start with something that messed with my head when I first read it. In 1830, there was a man in America. His name was Nat Turner. He was a slave. He had never been to school. He had never been allowed to own anything. Not a chair, not a cup, not even his own name legally. And one night, he looked up at the sky and he made a decision that changed history. But I'll come back to him. First, I need to tell you something that nobody talks about enough. When we say the word slavery, most people picture one thing: American plantations, cotton fields, civil war. And yes, that's real, and we are absolutely going there tonight. But here's the thing that actually shocked me when I started researching this episode. Slavery is not an American story. It's not even a recent story. Slavery is as old as human civilization itself. Like, as old as cities, as old as writing, as old as bread. The moment humans figured out how to build societies, some of them figured out how to own other humans inside those societies. Ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, ancient Greece. The same Greece that invented democracy. I want you to really think about that. The same people who gave the world the idea that every man deserves freedom. They had slaves. Lots of them. Aristotle, who we still teach in schools today, actually wrote that some people are naturally born to be slaves. He published that. Teachers still quote Aristotle. That fact alone should make you stop and think. Okay, so the number. 12.5 million people were taken from Africa and shipped to the Americas between 1500 and 1900. And I know when you say 12.5 million people, just sort of nod and move on because it's too big to feel real. So, let me make it smaller. The entire country of Belgium has about 11 million people right now. Every single person in Belgium, plus a few million more. Taken, shipped across an ocean, sold. And that's not counting the people who died on the way. And a lot of people died on the way. Which brings me to the part of this episode that I genuinely struggled to get through while I was writing it. The ships. Okay, so imagine you are grabbed from your village. You don't know why. You don't speak the language of the people grabbing you. You're chained to strangers. And then you're put on a boat. And the inside of this boat looks like a human storage unit. Wooden shelves stacked on top of each other. Each person given roughly the space of a coffin. You cannot sit up. You cannot turn over without hitting the person chained next to you. And the crossing takes anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months depending on the weather. No bathroom, no fresh air, disease spreading everywhere within days. And here's the part that I have to just say plainly because there's no gentle way to put it. The ship captains wrote in their own logbooks, their own records, that between 10 and 20% of people died on every single voyage before reaching land. Bodies were thrown into the ocean, and there are historical records of sharks following slave ships across the Atlantic because they learned that the ships meant food. I'll just let that sit there for a second. Now here's a fact that I think is genuinely one of the most shocking things I found while researching this. You know how we think of slavery ending and then everything getting better? It didn't work like that at all. After America abolished slavery in 1865, there was something called sharecropping, which sounds kind of harmless, right? Sharing crops? What it actually was this. Formerly enslaved people worked on land and were paid a tiny share of what they grew, but they also had to pay for their housing, their tools, their seeds, all from that same tiny share. And the prices were set by the landowner, so the debt was always bigger than the earnings. It was literally impossible to ever pay it off. It was slavery with different paperwork, and it was completely legal. And it lasted for decades. And then there's Haiti, and this is the part that made me genuinely angry when I read it. In 1791, enslaved people in Haiti decided they were done. They had no weapons. They had no army. They were up against the French military, which at that time was one of the most powerful armies in the world. And they won. The only successful slave revolution in all of human history. They declared independence in 1804. They built the first black republic on earth. It was an incredible moment. And then France said, and I am not making this up, France said, "Okay, you're free now, but you have to pay us back for the slaves we lost." Meaning, Haiti had to pay France for the freedom of its own people. The debt was so large that Haiti was still paying it in 1947. 1947, the year my grandfather was born. This is not ancient history. Okay, now I want to come back to Nat Turner, because I started with him and I want to finish with him. 1831, Virginia. Nat Turner could not legally read, but he had taught himself anyway in secret. He was deeply religious. And one night, he looked up at an eclipse of the sun, and he believed God was giving him a sign. He organized a rebellion. 55 people were killed. He was caught after hiding in the woods for weeks. He was executed. And here's the thing. After Nat Turner's rebellion, slaveholders across the entire American South panicked. They made the laws harsher. They made the restrictions tighter. They were terrified. And that tells you everything you need to know. Because terrified people are not terrified of passive victims. Nat Turner, with no weapons, no legal rights, no property, no freedom, scared an entire system of power so badly that they rewrote their laws overnight. There's one more thing I want to tell you, and then I'll let you go. There was a man, I'm not going to say his name, I want you to look him up. A formerly enslaved man who became a famous writer and speaker. And he wrote, decades after gaining his freedom, that sometimes he would hear a piece of music that reminded him of his mother's voice, and he would have to leave the room. This was a free man, a respected, published, successful free man, still leaving rooms. Because the loss of your family, your home, your entire world before you even understood what was happening to you, that kind of thing doesn't just go away. It lives in you. And sometimes it lives in your children, and their children after them. History doesn't stay in the past. It comes with us. It shapes the world we live in right now, whether we know it or not. And the only way to deal with that honestly is to look at it. Really look at it. Not the cleaned up textbook version, the real thing. That's what we're doing in this series. That's what we did tonight. This was episode 3 of Dark Pages of History. Episode 4 is coming, and it might be the hardest one yet. The Holocaust. 6 million people, 12 years, and a world that knew and mostly stayed quiet.